Before the next episode of X Job Downloaded starts, I have a big favour to ask. If you've enjoyed any of our episodes so far, please can you click on the follow button on your platform. I'm on Apple, Spotify, Google, Amazon and YouTube. It costs nothing to follow, but makes a real difference to me as a podcast producer. Thank you. My name is Paul Maleary, and for 30 years I served with Essex Police. During that time, I interviewed suspects for murders, rapes, extortions and violent crimes. Now, I interview former members of the police and military and others who have done exceptional things in their lives. Sit back and listen to X Job Downloaded. This interview is being tape recorded. My name is Paul Maleary and this is X Job Downloaded. And today I'm going to interview Jan Szymczuk. Have I said that right?
Well, it'll do. I've been called many things in my life.
Well,
it's Jan. Or during the Met, it was Boris.
Boris, yeah, and that's your signature, isn't it, Boris?
That's right.
PC Boris, DC Boris. That's your handle. Where did it all begin for you, and what was your inspiration to join the Metropolitan Police?
Well, I came down from the slag heaps of the northeast as a young lad. And I applied for a few jobs at the same time. I wanted to be a pitman like my father. My parents are Polish. My father was a deputy shot firer with the NCB. And I wanted to get a job because I'd left art college. I did a year at college doing art, foundation course. I did get onto a BA, but I never got granted any grant money, so I couldn't go ahead with that. So I said, well, I need a job. So I applied to be a pitman. I also applied that week to be a nurse, an auxiliary nurse. And I also applied for Northumbria Police. And Northumbria Police came through and they said, well, there was like 10,000 others applied when I did. So I didn't have a cat and hell's chance of getting in. But they did say, try for the Met, do your training, and then come back, transfer.
Wow.
So I said, yeah, I'll give that a go. And that's what I did. I went for the Met, got in on my interview, and that's how I joined the Met. I wanted to be a dog handler, for God's sake. That's why I wanted. I love dogs. I thought, I'll be a dog handler. But that's not the way it went.
So your mum and dad are Polish. What year did they come to the UK?
What year did they come to the UK? After the war. My dad was a paratrooper for the Polish paratroopers during the war in the UK. My mother came over after the war. We met my dad in Germany and they came over here to settle. My dad got a job in the colliery in Pitt because he got a house and he got fuel and that's what he did.
Fantastic. People forget, don't they, that the Polish, they were the first people to get involved with the Allies, if you like, for want of a better phrase, but first people to get there, the Free Army and to go back and fight. But why Newcastle? Why the northeast?
Well, a lot of Poles ended up in Newcastle and in Scotland, Edinburgh and whatnot, Glasgow. Our lot ended up in Newcastle, and I was born in just past Newcastle in a place called Stannington, Morpeth. So I grew up with a Geordie accent, Polish parents, applying for a job in the Met.
Fantastic. And you speak Polish?
Tylko troszkę, pani, tylko troszkę. I can speak enough to go into a shop and buy a loaf of bread and some milk and a pint.
Fantastic.
But I can't read or write it because I found that out when I went in the wrong toilets at the train station.
What year did you join the Metropolitan Police?
I joined in March 1979 during the Jurassic era.
Right.
The life on Mars was just in full swing.
And Edmund Davis hadn't been implemented, although the Labour government had actually written it and it was ready to go, but Margaret Thatcher introduced it in May 79 after her victory in the general elections. So you're joining at the, we talk about austerity now. Coppers weren't earning a lot of money in 1979.
No.
But comparable to North East wages, how did that work?
No, I mean, it was great because I left the Northeast, and during training, I stayed at Hendon, whereas everybody else could go home at the weekends. All the Geordies and Scottish lads and people from far afield, we stayed at Hendon at weekends. And then when I got posted, and I got a section house, I mean, I had moved away from the Northeast, so my life was away from the Northeast.
Yeah. And where did you get posted to after Hendon?
My first nick was Marylebone.
Right.
Marylebone Lane.
Very nice. And Marylebone covers a hell of an area. I mean, go to St John's Wood.
Yeah, I mean, it was all on D division.
Right.
That's when we had them, divisions.
Yeah.
We were next to Harrow Road, DR, Paddington, DD. We were Delta Mike, St John's Wood, DS. But the thing was, it was like central, it was North London, but it was pretty close to C and E, Holborn and West End Central and whatnot.
Yeah.
So we're always intermingled and working in each other's nicks. So yeah, that's how we started.
Is the police station still there?
Marylebone, no, I think it's a pub now or something. A lot of the stations, they sold them off. I can't believe how many they've sold off. I don't even know if they've got any left. Well, canteen culture, the current commissioner said, well, we got rid of canteen culture. Of course he did. He got rid of all the canteens.
Yeah.
All the stations.
Systematically destroyed the centre and the heartbeat of British policing.
Yeah, I mean, when I joined, it was before the internet, before mobile phones. So if you did something on the street or you arrested somebody, there wasn't a crowd of people taking your photographs and recording you and putting you on social media. Yeah,
I mean, poor buggers now, they really do, they're up against it. And you can see why they don't do certain things, can't you? You can see why they don't engage.
Oh, yeah, you open your mouth today and Christ, it's on the news. It'll be on the BBC News tomorrow, tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. What sort of stuff did you deal with at Marylebone when you first got there?
Well, I was just an ordinary PC learning beats, doing beat crimes. I joined the crime squad at Marylebone. We did the shoplifting in Oxford Street because we had one of the biggest shoplifting squads. Because we just take the van out, pick them up, go down one end of Oxford Street, stop it off at all the different department stores, Harrods, Debenhams, you name it, picking up all these shoplifters, bring them all back to Marylebone to be done. That's all we did all day. I did that, beat crimes, crime squad. And that's where I got my lucky break.
And what lucky break did you have then?
Well, I was PC plod walking down Baker Street. That was my beat. And I was walking past the Saudi Arabian Bank.
Right.
And there was a shout, there's been an armed blag. And I was the first copper on the scene. And it was like a few hundred yards away. And I was there. I was the first one to turn up. So I took up my notepad and my jot and everything, pen, and I started writing some notes and whatnot. Because they'd gone. The guys had done the flag had gone. And the flying squad burst through the doors like 20 minutes later. I think they were from Finchley. And I said to one of the detectives, look, I've been to art college, me, like. And one of the cashiers saw one of the guys. I reckon I could draw his picture. Yeah, Sonny, you go away, you draw the picture and let us get on with the work. So anyway, I took some photocopy paper. I'm sitting with this cashier. I got my biro and a pencil and I'm sketching away. And about an hour and a half later, I came back and I showed the detective. I says, this is what you came up with, this face. And he looked at it and he went, here, that's Harry. Hey, Sarge, look, it's Harry. This guy they were looking for, currently one of their active ones, like it was called Harry, whatever his name was. And the picture that I drew happened to look like it. Yeah, it was my idea, Sarge. I put him up to it. He's typical,
Yeah, typical CID.
Once I did that, that was it. I couldn't do anything else. So I ended up in beat crimes, but I was always called out to do artist impressions.
How cool's that?
It was wicked. I mean, I was doing burglaries. I was on murder squads, scenes of sexual crimes, rapes, you name it. all the big ones. And then somebody got notice of me at the yard and said, "Who's this guy on D doing all these fantastic pictures?" And the superintendent sent me a message saying, "I think you should go and apply to the SO11 photo fit team." So when a superintendent says you've got to apply, you've got to apply.
The writing's on the wall.
Yeah, so I did, and I got in, and I joined 4 other guys who were photo fit officers. Now, a lot of these guys were like the last few years in the job, or they were ill or something, and it was classed as a cushy number. I was an artist.
Yes.
I was one of the few people who could actually draw. So I did the drawing. I still did photo fits, but more often I would do a drawing because I could do them quicker. And I evolved in the team, and I became an EFIT operator. We helped develop the EFIT system that was used throughout the Met and other police forces. They even sent me, this big, hairy, ugly bugger, to Quantico to do the FBI course.
Wow.
In forensic art. And that was fantastic.
How long were you there?
I was there for about 10 days. 10 days or 2 weeks, something like that, just before Christmas. And it was funny because I would, at night after the course day, we'd all get together in somebody's room, and they'd come out and with their guns, and they'd strip them apart and clean them and put in rods and brushes in clean. And I didn't have a gun. All I had was a pencil case. So all I got was my pencil and a pencil sharpener. I would sharpen my pencil. I go, "Oh, look at the point on that." That's all I had. But we shared, and they trained me how to do skull reconstructions and the 2D and 3D reconstructions, and I brought that all back when I came back to the UK.
Amazing. And Quantico is a fantastic place, isn't it? I've been there. And,
yeah.
And they've got their small town that they use for reconstructions, and they've got all their other bits there. How many other Geordies were on that course?
No, there's only me. I was the UK contingent. It was like Eurovision Song Contest. I was the UK officer. All the rest were American.
Fantastic.
There was no other internationals, because they like throw out invites to train up international police officers, and we accepted, and they sent me over as one of the promising young artists. And it was a great laugh. I had a really good fun.
Fantastic. What year was that you went out there?
Oh, God, I just joined SO11. I think I'd done about 8 or 9 years, and I joined SO11. And it was within about 2 or 3 years that I went.
Right. Okay.
So, yeah.
Early 90s,
something like that, yeah.
So let me take you back a second. 1984 was a pivotal time within policing. You had the miners' strike. You had the murder of Yvonne Fletcher. So 84, was your dad still working in the collieries in 84?
He was. He was on the miners' strike, and he used to come home, but he worked because he was a deputy.
Right.
So he had to work.
He had to work.
Because he was in charge of explosives and stuff.
Right. So how did that work for you being in the cops and your dad being part and parcel of the biggest piece of industrial history for since the Industrial Revolution?
Well, he went to work, and I mean, my wife's brother were in the pit, and I used to go home when I was courting, and I was the copper courting my wife up in Morpeth, and our brothers were pitmen during the strike.
Right.
So, I mean, we just got on with it. It was a job I did. It was a job they did, but I never did the work. I was never called to do the work going back up north.
No.
During strikes.
Because there was a massive strain in relationships, and there still is certainly in some parts of Yorkshire, between the police and the former miners. When you are called out, or you were called out, you said that you went to murders and what have you. Would you actually go to the scene, or were you ancillary and you'd sketch the witnesses?
It's very rarely I'd turn up at a scene. I would turn up a day or two after the event.
Right.
In fact, if there was a rape, we'd often say, look, it's best if I interview the victim 24 hours after it happened, because if I interview on the same day it happened, she'd probably describe a monster.
Yeah.
And I would draw a monster. Whereas if you give them 24 hours, they'd be calm enough to be interviewed and draw a picture that would help you get a guy. That's the whole thing about being a police artist. We would do a cognitive interview. We would try everything we could to get people's memory and cognitive skills working better than they could, to try and remember what they saw. But you've got to remember that a lot of their memory was under duress.
Yes.
It's like if you had somebody walking in a park and a guy comes up behind this woman and snatches a handbag and runs off. That's so quick. There's hardly anything. She'd be lucky to identify the race of the person.
Yeah.
When you get a person who's pointing a gun at your face, then it all clicks in. Sometimes in a bank robbery or an armed robbery, you have that working against you, like it would be called weapon focus, whereas they would look at the weapon, wherever it was pointed, their eyes would go. Sometimes when you had to turn up, look at all the witnesses, you'd look, well, who is the best witness? Is it the cashier? Is it the woman in the queue waiting to be served? Is it the doorman, the security guard? And you've got to weigh up who had the best view. Did they see the person face to face? How long did they see that person for? Was it clear? And if you can get in there quick, you can get a really good picture. But if you leave it a while and they go away on holiday to try and forget it, and then they come back and you try and interview them, they've seen too many faces.
Yeah.
Sometimes age is a factor, like the murder of Rachel and Nicole at, where was that again? Is it Wimbledon?
Wimbledon Common.
Yeah, Wimbledon Common. And they wanted us to interview the son who witnessed it. He was 2 years old.
Yeah.
A child psychologist was telling us, look, there's no point. He couldn't even tell you whether it was a man or a woman or whatever the skin color was. So he couldn't reliably interview that child to do a picture. But then again, I've had witnesses who are really old, elderly people. I interviewed a woman whose job was casting director for movie films in Ealing. And she got an aggravated burglary. And when she's describing the person, she kept throwing in actors' names. Oh, he had a ridge, like a bit of a gabled brow and a Peter O'Toole chin line. And everything she said was an actor.
Yeah.
And she was brilliant.
That is superb.
Have you even interviewed a blind woman?
Stop it.
I can't kid you not. I was called by a CID, a sergeant, and he wanted me to interview this little old lady who was done for a burglary or something. And she said, oh, she's lovely, you get a cup of tea and everything. Just have a sit with her and you know, see if we can get a picture. So I sit down, I bring my photo fit kit in. I said, hello, I'm BC Szymczuk, but everybody calls me Boris. I'm the police artist. Oh, are you? Yeah, somebody said you might come. And do you want a cup of tea, officer? And I'm putting my kit down and setting it all up and everything. And as I sat, and she came back with the tea and the biscuits, she puts it on the little table in front of her, sits opposite me. And as we're talking, I begin to realise, as she's looking at me, she's not looking at me, she's looking at the wall behind me.
Oh. And
then she goes, you do realise, officer, I'm blind. I've been blind since birth. But I tell you what, this person, he was rugged. I think he was a gypsy because I could smell the alcohol on him. And he had rough skin and he had a stubble. And this was all because she was literally face to face, feeling the face and during whatever happened. And she described loads.
Wow.
So I went back in the CID and I said, yes, Sarge, you know that Mrs. whatever her name was? You sent me to, yeah. What's she like? Get your picture. I says, yeah. Well, a little bit of a one, but did you know she was blind? So whenever I saw this DS, I would walk in, I'd tap the desk. Hey, got any more witnesses? Good witnesses on these charges?
That's brilliant. That is brilliant. It must be such a rewarding job. I mean, I've seen your artwork, and it is absolutely phenomenal. It is absolutely phenomenal. They look like photographs.
Yeah, I love doing detail. It's like, because Quantico showed me how to do forensic art, and forensic art is very detailed. When you're building up a person's face from a skull and you're doing the muscle tissues and you're building it up layer by layer, that's what I've been doing in my art. I didn't actually start painting until I left the job.
Wow.
When I left the job, one of my sons bought me an acrylic painting kit. I started painting because previously all I'd ever done all my life was pencil drawings.
Right.
I could kill a drawing with a pencil. I was brilliant at it. I could do realistic drawings with pencil. I was very good. If you look at my website, I've done something like the girl with the pearl earring and stuff like that. And the detail is phenomenal. But I hadn't done any painting. But because I spent years doing sketches, police art, photo fits, I had a good sense of tone and shades and hues. So when I went to colour, it was dead easy. I found it was dead easy anyway.
I can't draw a stick, man. When you come back from Quantico, what was the reception like in the office? Because you are now streets above everybody else working within that environment, I would imagine, or have they been on the same course?
One of the DSs, Peter Bennett, had been on the course originally, and he was the one who actually put me up for the course to be the next one. And there was a gap of 10 years between when he went and when I went. The guy who trained me was called Horace Hefner. He was one of the guys who was on the case when JFK was assassinated.
Wow.
And he used to do and they showed me the model they made of the plaza and everything, and where the cars were. And they were using these long, skinny wooden rods to try and triangulate where the bullets were coming from the high buildings where the shooter was alleged to have shot. So I was being trained by somebody who had a lot of history in forensics.
It is an amazing place. I remember drawing up there, and all I could think of was Silence of the Lambs, because on the outside of the main entrance is that big sign. But I was disappointed because I thought they were all going to go on the lash, and they didn't. We went and ate pizza and drank coffee at the local pizza place. Brilliant people, though.
What I thought was funny, and it happens in most police stations in the US. You're in the middle of your course, and at about 11 o'clock, the donut lady would come down the hallway. Everything would stop. The trainers would stop, put down, everyone would go outside, and there'd be a trolley full of donuts and coffees. Yeah.
Brilliant.
I used to drive them nuts because I used to put vinegar on my fries.
Oh, yeah.
And these tough US coppers were like gulping. They couldn't understand how anybody could eat that. You know, because I was a Geordie. That's how we eat chips, you know.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
You spoke about the Rachel Nickel, but what other high-profile cases did you get called into?
We were called in on we helped do the Yorkshire Ripper one, and that actually changed the way we did things.
Right.
Because the Yorkshire Ripper case, they had called in artists all over the place, from Yorkshire, London, you name it. And in the incident room, they must have had about 400, 500 images on the wall in the incident room. They were taking pictures of, every time there was a witness describing somebody, they would get a picture done. And in the end, the picture was put up on the wall behind. And the trouble was, Sutcliffe was lost amongst 400 or 500 pictures. There was white guys, there was black guys, there was Asian guys, there was females, there was fat guys, skinny guys, bald guys, blonde guys, dark-haired guys. Some looked like him, but nobody knew who it was because there were so many pictures. And ever since that time, it was decided that whenever we are called to do a picture, we would only ever do one image, and it would be a type like this. So if we had a murder or a rape or something, and we had 2 or 3 witnesses, I would interview them primarily to find out who was my best witness. Once I have my best witness, I would use that person to do an image. If I got an image, great. If I didn't, I worked down onto witness 2.
Yep.
I would use the other witnesses for ID parades and albums. That's when you show them books of photographs, criminals. But primarily would only ever do one image, and it would be a type like this. Because before the Yorkshire Ripper case, if 2 of us did a picture each for the same investigation, we'd end up showing the investigating officer, well, he looks like this or he looks like this. So everybody's different.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Everybody's perspective is different. There was a famous case in Hammersmith. A young girl was snatched out of her bedroom, and the father found out, heard the noise, chased the guy out of the house into a builder's yard and started scrapping with this guy. And this went on for about 20 minutes, half an hour, and all the builders were watching. Eventually the guy got away. We were called in to interview the builders, and everyone described them differently.
Yeah.
Everybody has a different perspective.
Yeah, absolutely.
What you have to do is when you do a cognitive interview, you've got to take that person back to the scene. Sometimes it's horrible. Whatever it is they witnessed or happened to them, it was horrendous. So you've got to be careful. But if you take them back and before you even ask them for a description, you have to set the scene.
Absolutely.
What were you doing? Were you in a hurry? Were you taking your time? Were you going somewhere? Were you coming back from somewhere? What was the weather like? Were you cold? Were you hot? Were you thinking about other things? What was on your mind? And you do that, and you add in things like, did you smell anything? Might not mean much, but it'll put you back into that place where you were.
Yeah.
Once you do that, little windows and little doors open up of memory. And I'm jotting this all down. Even before I begin sketching or do a computer refit, I do a full cognitive interview, and that could last 2 or 3 hours, taking down all this information. A lot of senior officers would take the notes a police artist would make because it was invaluable. The information we had in our notes was invaluable.
But that was often the first account.
Yeah. We had everything about that, what that person could remember. And one of them might say, wait a minute, I'll tell you a good one. I ended up doing a picture, right, for a job. I can't even remember what the job was. And I think it was Hendon. And I ended up drawing Mr. Potato Head. And I was so embarrassed because I've been a police artist for a few years now. And I ended up drawing Mr. Potato Head. And I was so embarrassed. I said, look, I'm sorry, Gov, but I've just drawn Mr. Potato Head. This is what she said he looks like. And he had the big nose, bushy eyebrows, glasses, everything. And it was Mr. Potato Head. He said, well, okay, you've done your best. And I thought, I'll never hear from him again. A week later, he phoned me up and he went, Boris, can you just drop by the Nick? We got the guy from your picture, but you'd have a look at him. And I had a look at him in the cells. And it was Mr. Potato Head sitting there.
Fantastic.
I kid you not, it was Mr. Potato Head. So it just goes to show we're not all perfect models. And
well, that goes without saying, mate. You've got a full head of hair. How often would you have to give evidence at court on your pictures?
I would have to give evidence usually most of the time because I have to give evidence on the procedure of the picture. When we did the picture, I would have to sign it and the witness sign it, but I would sign it as part of my notes.
Right.
So my notes would be my notes that I took during the time, and the final result would be a picture or an e-fit or a photo fit. And then I would sign that. The witness would sign it. In our presence, our date and time it. So that's continuity, proof that we did it together. And that's what we did.
I suppose it's very compelling for the jury to see that, because they'll see your picture and they'll see that person standing in the box and they'll have heard from the witness. So it's quite a compelling piece of evidence for them to work on.
I've been to court where I'm giving evidence on my picture and the judge has just looked at me and smiled because I'm holding up a picture and he's looking at the guy in the box. And everybody can see that, oh, it looks like him. Well, you do get contested by the barristers, the defence lawyers will say, oh, wait a minute, you've got a mole on the left-hand side. But my client has the mole on the right-hand side. And I would say, well, the fact that you remembered the mole was enough. It doesn't, when we're not doing GPS finding exactly where it is on the human face. The fact that she remembers the mole was sufficient to put it in the picture. Yeah. It doesn't matter if it's left or right, that he has a mole. And I might have referred to and she said, well, I'm not sure if it was on the left or the right, so we did it on the left.
And every witness is fallible.
Yeah.
What was the most important case that you actually drew for and you subsequently gave evidence for? Do you remember?
Every case was important. I mean, there was murders, there was rapes, bombings. I did work for Special Branch, MI5.
Wow.
That was good, Dad, because you turn up in a hotel, interview somebody, draw a picture, and they take everything off you. To show
and you'd never hear the end result.
Hear the end of it. But not every job I did. The thing was, there was 5 of us covering all of London.
Right.
And you'd probably know there'd be loads of murders every week. There'd be loads of rapes and armed blags and everything. And we'd just go out and do them. We'd just get on our motors. We worked from home. We had a job motor and a job mobile. And the guy in SO11 would just phone them through to us saying, oh, I've got 2 rapes, an armed blag and a murder. So I take down all the details, find out where all the witnesses are located to where I'm located and try and do a round robin and see who I could the first. If it was urgent, like a dying declaration, somebody's dying and they're still alive and they want me to interview them straight away, then I'll go ahead and do that. And you have to be quick. And the guy's dying and you're trying to get something. And then you get times when you do a picture which is months, years after the event. Like the little old lady who saw one of her security guards from Auschwitz.
Wow.
In the high school. And I had to do some age progression and try and get a picture from her. And this is a woman who we're talking about during the war years, about 40 or 50 years.
Wow.
In the past.
And did they ever find the person or?
Oh, yes. It was somebody. It was changed his name a few times.
That's absolutely fascinating.
We used to do placement drawings where somebody would be taken into a room, like it'd be usually a sex crime or a kidnapping. And that's all they could give evidence on was the room. So we would have to draw the room. What was in the room? I mean, is it square? Is it rectangular? Was there a window? Was there a door? Is there a frame? Is there anything in there, chest of drawers or something? And if you've drawn enough, so when they come to getting close to nicking the person, if they find a room that matches the room we drew, then they're onto something. So people can remember things. I did tattoos. I used to draw tattoos because that's what they remember. Oh, I saw this tattoo of a knife. Now, if I tell you it's a tattoo of a knife, your impression of a knife is what? A kitchen knife? A pen knife?
Yeah.
A big Bowie knife? A stabbing knife? Everybody's got different, until you actually sit down and describe it. This is why artists were invaluable, because we could take a description of anybody or anything and draw it, put it onto paper, and then show somebody and say, look, this is what he looks like. This is what she recalls. This is what they remember. And that helps in the case.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're absolutely right. I mean, witnesses, they are fallible. They'll see a white van and they'll think it's a Transit when in fact it was a Mercedes Sprinter or whatever. But they've all got a different version, and I think that there's sometimes too much emphasis on witnesses. Of course there is, but actually they all make mistakes. There's nobody I've ever met that hasn't, including police officers.
Yeah. I was lucky that I could draw and see things and create the image in my head. And sometimes I was used to go into a place where you weren't allowed to take cameras and photograph people and just sit down, have a drink, keep my eyes on somebody in a corner, then half an hour later come out and draw a picture.
Wow.
So I could confirm who that was. I used to do facial mapping. That was when you would look at one bearded terrorist and another photograph of another bearded terrorist, separated by, 10, 15 years, and I'd have to measure their face, all the pieces of their face, the lines, the eyes, the nose, the angles, and then with some certainty, I could say it was the same person or not the same person. And I was one of the few people in the UK who could do that.
That's incredible. And because they've got facial recognition teams now, haven't they, in the Met, which is quite impactful.
Yeah. I don't really rate the computer AIs. They're stupid. They give everybody 6, 10 fingers on one hand, and
yeah,
they're not very good.
No, I agree. And everything's manipulated. And talking about recognition, every time I spoke to somebody and took a statement from them, they always described Phil Mitchell from EastEnders. Because in Essex, anybody that was involved in a blagging or something like that, they were stocky, bald, and they looked like Phil Mitchell.
I've had a witness describe me. Oh, yeah, he had eyes just like yours. He had a nose just like yours. Yeah, he had a chin just like yours. And I ended up drawing myself. This was a rape, but it wasn't a rape. It was a call for help.
Yeah.
And, she wasn't describing a suspect. I know when people were lying when we were drawing somebody, when they were making it up.
Yeah.
And I know sometimes when you're getting really close, especially for the sex crimes, they would start to move away from you because they didn't like the look of the picture, because it made them feel horrible, because that meant you were getting close.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, whereas if they're leaning over your shoulder going, oh, yeah, just like that, I suppose that makes it the other way.
Yeah. It's the way you sit with them. You don't sit opposite them. You sit on the long end of the table, or the end of the table, and they'll sit on the long end. You're next to each other, so you can see each other. You never confront them. I never wore a uniform when I was a police artist. I wore plain clothes.
Right.
I had hair, I wore a cowboy hat. They saw me, they would never believe I was a copper.
It's brilliant. Did you get the recognition you think you deserved? Because you've done some great drawings. I mean, they are absolutely stunning. But did you get commendations for the work that you did?
I did get a few commendations from some of the pictures that I did, because it helped put people away. But it wasn't something we'd looked for, sought.
No.
It was your job, and it was something we did.
Yeah, I agree.
And I enjoyed doing it. I enjoyed the result when we got a picture. If I didn't get a picture, I was a bit down because I tried my best. And the thing was with myself is I could do an artist impression. If that didn't work, I could do an e-fit or a photo fit. So I could try different things. Sometimes I would say, no, I'm not going to do a photo fit with this one. She's having trouble looking at the photographs because they're too much like people. So I'll try a drawing. Because when you look at a drawing, it's not a real person. It's an impression.
Yeah.
A sketch. So people remember that better. Then if you show them an e-fit or a photo fit, it's too much like a person and they're having trouble.
Yeah.
So you decide which is your best way of doing. The end result, the end of the day, you have to try and get an image for the investigating officer.
How were you viewed by the commissioner and the other senior management as a useful resource to policing?
Well, I must have had some friends, because I had to run interviews for my own job about 2 or 3 times. and we couldn't find anybody who could do it as good as myself. So I ended up retiring as a senior police artist.
Right.
They honestly, senior management knew how good we were. Investigators, AMITs, incident rooms, they knew how good we were to a case. I don't know what they do today. I don't even know if they still do it, or if it's all just done by a computer generating it. But the idea of an artist going in, sitting down with a witness or a victim and trying to get a picture, that was invaluable. Because not only did you get a picture, even if you didn't get a picture, you got so much information that when I showed my notes to an investigating officer, senior officer, he would say, right, I want you to go back and interview that woman again. Because I've looked at Boris's statement and we've brought out 10 things that weren't even mentioned. You know, so yeah, they would use us an awful lot.
And I understand that your name, Boris, is synonymous to the role that you undertook, but even at Crown Court you got called Boris.
Well, I was outside the Old Bailey, number 1 court on a murder, and I was waiting to give my evidence on the pictures that I did. And I'm sitting there, and the clerk came out and says, Officer Boris? And I went, oh, sugar. That's not my name. So I had to go, Officer Jan Szymczuk, sometimes known as Boris.
Brilliant.
But yeah, no, I've enjoyed it. I was one of the happiest police officers in the Met.
Oh yeah, but you saw so much over that time, from 79 to 2009. Did you finish that?
2009.
7/7 bombings, all the stuff that went on in your lifetime in the police service, and you would have been instrumental in the gleaning of evidence through all of those significant cases.
Oh yeah, it was. Even though you lived through the time, I mean, we lived through the riots before we had riot shields.
Yeah,
we had dustbin lids. We lived through the time of bombings, and like you say, and we used to be in a car in the bomb squad, which was you and somebody else, a driver in a car, checking out packages in the high street somebody's left. And what did we do? We usually kick them to see if anything was in them.
Yeah.
We weren't even trained or anything. So it was a different era of policing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And because I was specialised and I got trained to do that specialist role, I was like a round peg in a round hole. I was very good at what I did. If you took me off and then turned me into a Thames Division officer, I'd probably be seasick for a month and not any good to anybody. But I was using a talent that I knew I had as an artist.
Yeah.
I was an artist pretending to be a policeman, for God's sake.
But you joined the police to be a police dog handler.
Yeah.
So
that never happened.
You couldn't get any further from that by what you did.
But I did do. I mean, my father, he's gone now. Bless his cotton socks. When I was in art college, he kept telling me, get a proper job, Jan, get a proper job. You can't live off art. So then I joined the police, and he was over the moon. My son's a police officer. And I would come home and he'd go, why is your hair long? Oh, I'm in the surveillance squad. SO11, I need long hair. Oh, but you're a policeman. That's really... I never told him I drew pictures. You know, he was happy because his son was a police officer. That was an upstanding profession, and he was so happy.
And it still is, mate. And I feel dreadfully sorry for some of these youngsters going through what they're going through at the moment, you know, and the people that let us down. I couldn't do it
today, I don't think. It's an alien work environment.
Yeah,
there's no camaraderie. There's no individuality. You can't say anything that's on your mind. In our day, if something happened, you said, "Oh, you're an idiot," or "He's an idiot," or there was an idiot senior officer and they got promoted, and got rid of the problem, but it didn't because they all bunched up at the top layers.
Yeah, they moved it to a different perspective.
Yep.
Yeah, and like I say, the people that have let us down, as you know, as police, and I still see myself as being part of that police team, and it's heartbreaking. You retire in 2009, and you take on your passion. The passion to draw. I've seen your stuff, and it is absolutely exquisite. What is your motivation? How do you keep going? Because you're prolific in what you do, but the quality is overwhelming.
I put that down to 30 years being a police artist. 30 years of having to come up with a picture, one after the other. Sometimes I'd do 2 or 3 or 4, 5 pictures in a day. Each picture takes 2 or 3 hours. Now, that's a lot of work, sitting with somebody very patiently, taking down details and then drawing it, changing things if they're not happy. So when I went into drawing, it was so easy.
Yeah.
And paint, I just found it so easy, and I enjoyed it. And I've enjoyed it before I joined the police. Ever since I was a little kid, I would draw, and that's been my passion. Remember, I grew up without Nintendos or Xboxes or internet or mobile phones. So it was art. I used to go to kiddies' discos and sit in a corner with some of the guys and draw tattoos with felt pens and charge them 50p. I'm not drawing. I was always the one. Oh, he's a good drawer. He can draw anything. Yeah, so it was always in me. That's what I was good at. So when I joined the police, drawing, when I found out I could draw and be a police officer, I thought, this is lovely, lovely jubbly. I'll have some of that. I loved it. And it wasn't a chore. If you enjoy doing what you do, it's not a chore.
No, absolutely. Absolutely.
And honestly, when I got the look on some of the faces, when I interviewed somebody and I took this horrible picture away from their memory onto paper and walked away with it, it was a sigh of relief. As they were holding on to it, and then I would draw it down, and then they could go, right, I've done that bit, I got rid of that. Take it away.
Do they ever call you back to do any work? I mean,
I sometimes get cold cases. Some of the old DCs still remember me, and they'll ring me up and say, I've got a cold case. It's 15, 20 years old. I've got a witness. Sometimes journalists ring me up because they've heard of me, and I'll do cold cases from a witness who they didn't interview at the time to get a picture, like some of these gangland murders in Newcastle and stuff like that, where they found a witness who's still alive who remembers somebody, but he was never used, he was never interviewed. So a journalist decided, it would be good to get this police artist who I know in the Northeast to do it. The first one I did was just before Christmas. I interviewed this woman from California. She was on holiday and she saw Bigfoot. And the journalist knew me from my Facebook page and asked me to interview her to draw Bigfoot, the face she remembers, because he walked across the road in front of the car and stopped and swaying his arms and everything. I've drawn Bigfoot. I've even drawn from a clairvoyant.
Wow.
Who used a medium, somebody in the spirit world, to convey who the person was she was describing. I had a big problem with that. So I thought, who signs the the witness or the spiritual guide? You know.
Have the Met had you back to do any extra work?
Yes, the Mets had me back. Yeah. Once the governor, John Greaves, he was a great commander, SO11. He was interested in the original Ripper case.
Right.
And they came across some old statements taken back in the day when the Ripper was active. And he thought, you know what, I wonder if Boris could do a picture. So he put my name up front, and I had to go and see this old statement on parchment. It was really old, written in cursive writing and everything. And just using the description in the statement, try and draw a picture. I've done that before. But honestly, the description was, I can still remember it. I saw this gentleman running with a top hat and cape.
That narrows it down a bit. 1890s in East London.
Yeah, at night.
You did a picture for Dame Cressida.
Oh, yeah.
Can you discuss that?
I did a caricature. I was asked to do a caricature that one of her colleagues presented to her. I did her hat on a pillar with the lanyards hanging and whatnot, and just saying, "Thank you for your service, Mum." And there's a little teddy bear in the corner with pins in it, and it just had SK on its foot.
Yeah, and
I do believe she liked that.
I'm sure she did. I know she's out of the police service now, and she's enjoying a well-earned retirement and keeping out of the public gaze, which is probably right as well.
I mean, I was planning my retirement a few months before I actually retired. And when I went to my retirement course, and there's a lot of coppers there, different ranks, and they're all worried about what they're going to do, how are they going to survive. And I was the only happy Larry because I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to carry on drawing and painting.
Yeah.
And I ended up doing that. I was on the BBC Big Picture, the Big Painting Challenge.
Yeah.
In 2015. There was like, out of 8,000 applicants, there was 10 chosen, and I was one of them.
Fantastic.
The BBC took us out. It was a bit like the Portrait Artist of the Year kind of thing, but it was the BBC's job, and they did it. They took us out, and they said they were going to take you out every weekend all around the UK for painting challenges. First place they took us, Alnwick Castle. Just the road trip. We had to take the kids in the summer. Second place they took us, London. Where I spent 30 years. I only lasted 2 weeks, but I came back in the final week. A lot of people still recognise me from that show. And I was in Costco the other day, and this little lady goes, "Oh, you're that guy from the Bake Off, aren't you?" I didn't have the heart to tell her. I just said, "Yeah."
Because your other passion is Newcastle United.
Oh, aye. You cut me on black and white. We're in the FA Cup quarterfinals. We just beat Blackburn, Shearer's old club.
Yeah.
I grew up standing in the Gallagher end and watching Newcastle, and I've always been Newcastle. But it was funny when I was down London, when I was in uniform, and I used to go to football matches as a police officer. And when the Geordies would visit, I'd be standing there amongst them, as you did when you were on police duty on a football. And all the Geordies were shouting at each other in their Geordie accents and everything, and they thought they could get away and say whatever they wanted, because Southern coppers down there didn't know what they were talking about. Now we're torn running to see how monkey bullshit, and I do know.
You'd interpret for the other coppers.
Well, I knew what they were saying.
Yeah.
All the Geordies.
What year were you born?
Me, I was born 1958. I get my bus pass this year.
Do you?
And my pension, 65.
Brilliant. Full head of hair and a huge sense of humour.
All head of hair. I've still got my hair. I kid you not. Last autumn, I shaved it off. I look like you. That's what I do. I just got a shave and I started shaving it all off. My wife nearly had a heart attack. I've done it before, and it's just starting to grow back now because it used to be really long.
It's fancy.
You look like a Viking. If you look at my website, you'll see a picture of me. Really long hair. I am every barber's nightmare because I would walk past and make funny faces in the window and say, "You're not going to get me today. You're not going to get me today." All that money I've saved.
Brilliant.
I just gave it all off because I was sick of it that day.
So we can find your website. We're going to put all your posts in the body of the text on this podcast. But you do private commissions, don't you? People will. I
do private commissions. I've stopped doing paintings. I used to demonstrate art, acrylic painting, oil painting, watercolours. I used to go all around the northeast and sometimes over the UK, even as far afield as Kent, doing demonstrations. This was after the TV show and I was famous and everybody knew me. And then when lockdown came, I'd killed it off. I couldn't do demonstrations. I couldn't do art classes or anything. So I started doing digital art on my iPad.
Oh.
Using an Apple Pencil. Yeah.
Yes.
iPad and just drawing. And I started drawing my old cartoons, my old police cartoons that I used to do when I was at Marylebone.
Oh.
And then I used to draw them digitally, redo them. And then I started drawing hats, police custodian helmets, WPC, truncheons. And people saying, oh, would you sell these? And I made a website and I started putting them on there. And they were very, very popular. And now I do montages, police stuff. And if you go on my website, you'll see I've done loads. I've done police vehicles, firearms, epaulets, patches, badges, helmets. And I can make up a person's career just off what I've drawn.
Which is fantastic. And people, as I say, your email address, your website, police officers that are retiring, if you're trying to think of what to get your colleagues when they retire, don't go and buy them a bottle of whiskey. Don't go and buy them a load of old vouchers or from whatever site you'll go to. Go to this man's website and see his work. It is absolutely phenomenal. And your friends will be your friends for the rest of their lives because it is just something, it's such a keepsake.
It is, honestly, when I've drawn something for somebody and they've been retired and they've been handed this thing, they've literally cried.
Oh, yeah.
When I left, I got a handshake from a total stranger.
Well, I didn't even get that, but that's another story. But yeah, it's absolutely brilliant. And of course, you've appeared in The Spectator as well, which, or your work has appeared in Spectator because somebody got the wrong end of the policeman's stick.
Oh yeah, it's because I used to draw montages of flat caps, sometimes upside down, and somebody says, "Oh, can you write my name inside and draw a picture of a penis or cockpit?" I did. Draw a picture of a cock in the hat, and I did some of them. And a journalist put me on, interviewed me, and he wanted to know, was I providing this service of drawing cocks in policemen's helmets? I said, no, that was just on one or two commissions that I did.
And that was Punch, not Spectator. I apologise. Yes.
Oh yeah, it was Punch. Yes, Punch.
Yeah.
And they made an article on it. And
brilliant.
I had loads of coppers ringing me up, asking me for orders. And I thought, oh, it's great. It's done me no harm.
Absolutely.
Honestly, it was part of what we do as coppers.
Oh,
you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you laid your helmet or your flat cap down in the canteen, you went for a toilet or something, you come back somewhere drawn a cock in it.
Yeah, or your pocketbook. You leave your pocketbook on the side, and somebody would have drawn a huge penis in it. Yes, and then just leave it back on the side. That's exactly it. And that's police humour. And a lot of people won't get that. They won't understand it.
Well, they tell you, if you learn a man to fish, he'll feed his family for life. If you give him a pencil, he'll probably draw a cock.
That is hilarious. Do you miss the bright lights of London now that you're back up? No.
No, I'm a Geordie through and through. I couldn't wait to leave London. It's a smoke town. It's overcrowded. And you can live next to somebody for years and not even know them.
Yeah.
Whereas where I'm from, the northeast, I mean, look at that. I've got fields everywhere. I've got fields on three sides.
Yeah. Priceless.
There's young Samuel. He's taking his horses out for a little trot across the... It's lovely.
Yeah.
The water is soft.
Yeah.
We've got one of the greatest football teams in the world. One of the richest.
Yeah, certainly one of the richest.
Now it is.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I love the northeast.
What does the future look like before we conclude this interview? What does the future look like?
Well, I shall still be drawing. In fact, if you dig my grave up, you'll probably find sketches on the inside of the coffin. Because it's very tricky.
Well,
but I will draw as long as I can hold a pencil or a stylus.
Good for you.
I will paint in me. It's like if you're mad on fishing, you will fish till the day you die. If you're mad on something you absolutely love, you will do it till the end of your day. And I will do it till I can't see anymore.
Good for you, mate.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. You're absolutely right. Well, before we conclude this interview, and I give everybody this opportunity, is there anything you'd like to add, alter, or correct in relation to the statement that you've made today?
I'm totally insane. No, honestly, I've just enjoyed my time in the Met. It was great. I was one of the lucky ones, and I lived through a time that does not exist anymore, and it's a shame.
It is,
and I really, I never regretted a moment.
Well, no, and I think there's probably hundreds of us who never regretted it, and I do get the reason why some people do regret their time in the police service, but it's a job to enjoy.
It's something we did. We took our pride in doing.
Yeah, absolutely right. Absolutely.
You know, we worked. If it took longer than the shift, we worked it.
Yeah.
Because we felt you had to do it. You had to do a Crown Court case for yourself and do all the paperwork. You had to make damn sure it was everything was correct.
Yeah.
Legal, it was all had to be done spot on.
Yeah. Because you get...
Stars would come along, check it out and said, oh, that's wrong. You can't say that.
Yeah.
Can't do that. Have you stamped it? Have you recorded it? Have you dated it? Is it in this book? Is it in that book?
Yeah. And
what you had to know then was unbelievable.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now it's all on your little computer, your phone, or your camera on your helmet.
Yeah. You'd have to know legislation. Out of interest, what program do you use on your iPad?
I've settled with Procreate because that's really good. It lets you draw as an artist and it uses layers. It's a bit like digital art where you did animation, like what Disney did. And each layer, you could draw something and then put a new layer on and refine it and color it and put a new layer on and refine, move things around once you've drawn it. And that's what I do with my montages, because once I've drawn a helmet or a stab vest or a gun or something, or epaulets, I can move them around and make them look presentable.
Perfect.
Add a bit of text on the bottom, put the Met crest on the background. I even drew that because I had a Met crest from an old car sticker when I was a graphics officer at Harrow Road. I forgot to mention that. I was a graphics officer with the ISU, FIB.
Oh, were you? What did that entail?
Yeah, that's in between Marylebone, and I got a job as a graphics officer, and it was newly set up at Harrow Road in the yard in a port cabin. And then we moved to Wembley QM in the High Street. And that's when I got the call to join SO11. I forgot about that bit.
I wonder what your mum and dad would say now, you know, with your illustrious career and all the things that you did. I wonder how they'd feel about...
Well, my mum would say I was the biggest joker because I always made her laugh. And no matter what I did in life, if I could see the funny side of anything. But my dad, he'd been through... I mean, he was a prisoner by the Russians in one of their camps, the gulags, with a lot of other Poles. He was one of the soldiers who marched through Catton Wood, and when they separated the sergeants and everything below, and then the senior officers, and they murdered the senior officers, buried them in a huge trench, and then they went to the gulag up in Siberia, and then when the Russians joined the Allies, they had to free all the Poles. So those Poles did that famous march all the way down to Palestine. My dad was in that.
Wow.
When he joined the paratroopers, he was one of the ones who was at the swam the Rhine with a radio on his back. You know, he paratrooped. He was in all the major offences.
Amazing.
So he was an amazing man. We didn't say much about the war.
No.
But he was the maths teacher. He used to write maths books, for God's sake.
Really?
Yeah. He used to do reams and reams. I've still got the books of calculus and stuff like that. And if you're into maths, it's a big thing. And I don't think he could understand me drawing because it was an alien concept to me dad, because he had the war and everything, and it was kind of bourgeoisie.
Yeah, of course. But then we're from that era. I mean, you're a little bit older than me, but we're from music and art. changed dramatically in the 70s. I mean, it was or from the mid 60s, I suppose, because I'm really into Roy Lichtenstein and people like that.
Yeah.
And your pop art from the late 50s. And I suppose it was seen as a bourgeoisie. You grew your hair long. Nobody grew their hair long until sort of 1969, and you
It was the end of the hippie era, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And I always said to me, Mum, I want my hair long. And she always cut my hair short. And when I joined the police, I grew my hair long. It was fun.
Brilliant. Well, look, mate,
I've enjoyed it, honestly.
Good. Well, I hope you've enjoyed today. I hope it hasn't been too painful for you chatting through and yakking and yarning with me. And I've really enjoyed it.
I'm pleased you had the ears to listen. I mean, I love it. What I did was anything exciting, but when people tell me, "Oh, you should write a book," I thought, "Why?" But maybe I will one day.
Or certainly, from the illustrative point of view, if you didn't write a book, anybody that's writing anything to do with the police, for covers of police books and what have you, you are the man. I've written
a self-published police book of my art, of all my art.
Why haven't you mentioned that in this bloody interview? What sort of interviewer are you?
Well, honestly, I mean, I've made 30 quid off it so far. I mean, I'm rolling in it. I'll be on the TV shows next, doing the chat shows. One day, honestly, after I'm long gone, they'll dig up my book and say, "Oh, this is what police officers wore, and truncheons, what they look like, and epaulets, and instead of these fuzzy photographs on the internet."
Yeah, well,
I draw stuff. I just love the police memorabilia. I love it, and I draw it, and I'm often on the lookout for photographs of things. Currently, I want to draw some mounted branch stuff, so I need pictures of saddles. If you put a shout out, if somebody wants something drawn, if I don't know anything about it, please send me photographs, because I love it.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what I use as my reference.
Absolutely. I will speak to you when you're older. Thank you so much for your time today. I've really found it interesting, captivating. No, I really have. I think social history is a big part of policing. The fact that you and I were present at some of the biggest events in recent history. Between us, we've seen everything that's taken place: murders, abductions, rapes, extortions, bombings, everything. If you multiply that across the 100,000 brilliant people that have either served or are still serving, the stories come from us.
Yeah.
And that's
my story was behind the scenes, so it wouldn't have been aired anyway. Very rarely is it shown. Usually it's when you see a detective thriller or something, the detectives, the criminal and whatnot, and you might see a picture on a wall in a desk or something, but you would never go into the history of how that image was obtained.
No.
And that took a long... patience and whatnot, and it helped.
Absolutely. Well, look, I'll let you get to your day, sir, and I will speak to you.
Well, thank you very much.
No, thank you. I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and God bless you. Take care. Cheers, then. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Paul Maleary's X-Job Downloaded. Please like, follow, and share with all your friends. Your support is absolutely invaluable and makes a real difference to me as a podcaster.